What up, people? The first half of 2023 is over, and it's been a lot of amazing games released already. And if you're an RPG fan specifically, like I am, then you've had plenty of games to buy, play, or add to your backlog. And because I'm such a big RPG fan, I want to take the time to highlight some of the massive RPGs that have been released these past 6 months. My ultimate goal for these videos is to make it so everyone can find a couple of games that they might want to play, and because of that, I'll only have one game per franchise, so sorry Trails fans. Also, if you're new to the channel, I make videos about single player games, specifically RPGs as you can tell, but I talk about other genres sometimes. If you end up enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button to help with the algorithm. But this intro is getting kind of long, so here are the top 10 RPGs released in the first half of 2023. Starting off the list, we have Fire Emblem Engage. Released in January, this strategy RPG is the 17th entry into the Fire Emblem series. When it comes to gameplay, it's just as good as it's ever been, and that's because of the weapon triangle mechanic. Unlike in Fire Emblem Three Houses, the weapon triangle returns with the popular rock, paper, scissors format of swords over axes, axes over lances, and lances over swords. However, a new little wrinkle into the mechanic involves the introduction of fist weapons, which have the advantage over magic, bows, and daggers. The maps, in my opinion, are also much more well designed, and the variety of the maps are also great, as very few maps look similar. Engage goes back to the old formula of having one focused story instead of having 3 or 4 different story paths. While I prefer the multiple story paths like Echoes, I feel most people will prefer this more linear narrative. A common criticism with Engage from Fire Emblem fans is the designs of the characters, specifically the main protagonist. A lot of them feel like the designs and overall aesthetic of the units are too bright and cartoony, and it's hard to take a story about war seriously that involves them. While it doesn't bother me personally, compared to characters from previous entries, the new designs could be off-putting to some. Maybe look up some pictures and decide for yourself before you buy the game. The consensus with Fire Emblem Engage from people who loved or hated it is that the gameplay is probably as good as it's ever been, while the story is noticeably weaker than that of Three Houses. So, if you're looking for that old school Fire Emblem gameplay and can overlook an average story and some questionable character design choices, then I think Fire Emblem Engage could be a lot of fun. At number 9, we have Like a Dragon Ishin. A remake of the 2014 game that was exclusive to Japan, Ishin is a historical thriller spin-off of the Yakuza Like a Dragon series. And just in case anyone asks you, no, you don't have to play any of the other Yakuza games to play Like a Dragon. For me, that's a plus because there's nothing more disheartening than wanting to play a game and realize you have to play 3 or 4 games before just to get that outward. Anyway, as far as gameplay goes, many have said Ishin mostly resembles the combat of Yakuza 5. As Sakamoto, you'll have access to 4 fighting styles: Swordsman, Brawler, Gunman, and Wild Dancer. Virtue, the new system in the game which can be used to get new abilities, can be gained by completing side quests, story events, getting completion points, and other tasks. For fans of previous Yakuza games, many games like gambling, karaoke, and the fighting arena have returned, while also adding new side content such as a battle dungeon and a side story involving Sakamoto paying off a sick girl's debt. If you're a fan of the Yakuza games, I'm sure you've already played this, or have it in your backlog at least. But for the rest of you, seeing as how you don't have to play any other prior games before playing this, Like a Dragon Ishin might be the perfect entry point into this popular franchise. Next up, we have The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. Being the 10th installment into the main Trails series, this turn-based JRPG was originally released in 2020 but just became available to purchase in North America this year. Since this is the 10th installment into the franchise, I feel I should tell people unfamiliar with it that this is not a good starting point to get into the Trails games. It actually is probably the worst, as this game is paying off over 8 games of story, lore, and world building. There's plenty of recommendations online about where you should start, but just know that this game is not one of them. Trails into Reverie turn-based combat plays very similarly to that of the Cold Steel games, and features a new crossroads system where players can switch between 3 different story arcs, with each focusing on a different protagonist. The game also has over 50 characters you can play as, so a real treat for the people who've played through all these games. Okay, I'm gonna break the fourth wall for a little bit. As I was looking up info on this game, it made me interested in starting the series from the beginning game, Trails in the Sky. And because of that, I don't want to look up any more information in fear of being spoiled. So I'm actually gonna wrap up this entry a little sooner than I planned, so sorry. Even though you'd have to play through a lot of games in order to catch up with the story, based on what diehard fans of the series have said, Trails into Reverie and the series as a whole so far is 100% worth the investment. The next RPG or RPGs on the list is the Etrian Odyssey Origins Collection. Origins is a collection of the first 3 Etrian Odyssey games remastered and adapted to a single screen. If you're unfamiliar with the series, the gameplay involves turn-based combat with dungeon crawling. As you're fighting enemies, you'll be drawing out the map while you're exploring. Outside of updated graphics, there are some other added features to these updated games, some of those being a remastered soundtrack, quality of life improvements such as difficulty selection, multiple save slots, and 24 additional character portraits. Also, unlike the Untold games on the 3DS, the collection does not contain any of the story changes or additional content added. I might be one of the very few who prefers the Untold games because I just need a story in my JRPGs, but fans of the classic Etrian Odyssey games I assume will be fine with it. Between the 3 games, you're looking at about 150 hours of content, and if the $80 for the whole collection is a bit too steep, you can always buy the games one at a time for $40. Earlier this year, I made a 4-part series showcasing games that Nintendo fans should buy on the 3DS before the eShop closed, and Etrian Odyssey was one of the 40 games mentioned. Even though I haven't finished the game yet, the time I spent going from turn-based battling to drawing out a map was very fun and oddly relaxing in many ways. So if you haven't played these games on the 3DS, or you just want the same games with improved graphics, the Etrian Odyssey Origins Collection won't disappoint. At number 6, we have the sequel to Respawn's unexpected hit with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This action-adventure RPG takes place 5 years after the events of Star Wars Fallen Order, as Cal, being one of the last remaining Jedi, is still under constant pursuit from the Empire. The core combat returns as you'll be using lightsabers and the Force like in the previous game, but with some added tools. Some additions to the combat are Cal's ability to wield 2 lightsabers and also being able to dismember enemies to make you feel even more like a badass. He'll also have new Force abilities which include a stronger Force push, stopping blaster fire midair, and making enemies fight for you as well. Reception for the game has been pretty positive as Jedi Survivor has about an 85 on Metacritic. The game also won't take up too much of your time as it only takes about 20 to 30 hours to get through, depending on if you want to do side quests or not. Even though I'm still getting through the first game, most people who've played both will tell you that Star Wars Jedi Survivor improves on Fallen Order in areas such as combat, traversal, and basic quality of life enhancements. So if you've already played Fallen Order, then the sequel should definitely be the next game on your list. Kicking off the top 5, we have Hogwarts Legacy. This open world RPG is putting a major focus on letting you feel like a student straight out of the Harry Potter books. You'll be playing as a fully customizable student who, after you get sorted to your respective house, will be attending classes so you can learn how to cast spells, grow magical plants, brew potions, and also learn how to fight, which will all lead to you discovering your own fighting style. Through in-game challenges, you can earn experience points to gain levels, which allows the player to access and upgrade different spells, talents, and abilities. These challenges come in the form of combat, quests, and exploration. You'll also have the ability to establish friendships with NPCs. As these relationships grow, your schoolmates become companions who can accompany you on your journey, expand your abilities, and offer unique companion quests as players learn their stories. The game only takes about 25 or so hours to beat, so not too much of a time investment, and I've seen sales here and there for about $35 to $40 if you don't mind physical. Despite some controversy, which I definitely won't be getting into, the game has seen mostly positive reviews and reception, which makes its 85 on Metacritic understandable. Whether you're a fan of the Harry Potter franchise or not, if you're a fan of action RPGs, then Hogwarts Legacy could be your surprise hit of the year. At number 4, we have Octopath Traveler 2. This is the sequel to the 2018 game and is the third entry into the series, including the mobile game, which I think I heard isn't that bad. The turn-based combat from the first game is back and better than ever, but the game has also added some new elements this time around. One of those being Crosspath, which addresses a major issue from the first Octopath that me and many others had. See, the first game had an issue with none of the 8 characters really interacting with one another, and the issue was very glaring, at least for me. Thankfully, Crosspath, which are side stories involving 2 of the 8 characters, now exists and we can see some of them bounce off each other, which will add to the immersion. Other things like day and night cycles, latent powers which are kind of like new finishing moves, and quality of life additions such as more voice acting really upgrades the overall package of this sequel. Despite not garnering the same attention as the previous entry, Octopath Traveler 2 has been heavily praised from fans and critics alike. Most who have played have said that the game improves on almost every aspect of the first game. The combat, music, and HD 2D art style are held in high regard, and I've heard many JRPG fans say that it's their personal game of the year. When it comes to turn-based JRPGs, Octopath Traveler 2 gives you that, plus so much more. So if you've been thinking about picking up this game, I definitely think you should pull the trigger. Starting off the top three, we have Final Fantasy 16. Aside from being the first Final Fantasy game to have an M rating, this is also the first one to be a true action RPG, as all battles take place in real time and there will be no turn-based combat at all. In 16, you'll take control of protagonist Clive Rossfield and a rotating party of companions through the continents of Valisthea. Combat takes place in the same area players navigate, entering battles once the enemy sees the party. Clive is the only controllable character, with other characters being AI controlled and have their own attack and magic abilities. Another common companion is the dog Torgal, who responds to Clive's commands to perform special attacks or heal you. While in battle, Clive can use normal attacks, a dodge, and use elemental abilities from icons, the game's version of recurring Final Fantasy summoned monsters. Clive can switch between different icon abilities during battle, stringing them together into different combo attacks. The star of the show in this game are definitely the icons, specifically the icon battles. Just like combat with Clive, icon vs icon battles play out in real time. The developers promised that these icon battles will all feel different, and based off what I've seen and the little I've played, they weren't lying. One battle is a rail shooter like Kid Icarus, next is one-on-one combat like Street Fighter, or it could just be some good old-fashioned wrestling. A lot of longtime Final Fantasy fans are understandably upset about the removal of the turn-based combat they've grown to love. But if you're looking for a mature action RPG with some of the more memorable boss fights I've seen in a while, Final Fantasy 16 has got you covered. At number 2, we have Diablo 4. Diablo 4 takes place 50 years after the events of Diablo 3, after millions have been slaughtered by the actions of the high heavens and burning hells alike. In the power vacuum, a legendary name resurfaces, Lilith, daughter of Mephisto. Her grip on Sanctuary cuts deep into the hearts of men and women alike, cultivating the worst in its denizens and leaving the world a dark, hopeless place. The creative director of Diablo 4 talked about him wanting a more grounded game compared to 3, and to accomplish that, the game's plot revolves around the simple folk of Sanctuary as opposed to more common themes in fantasy like royal politics. The classic loop of defeating enemies, leveling up, and getting loot is back, and many fans say it's just as good as it's ever been. One of the major changes, however, is that Diablo 4 is open world for the first time and will have over 150 dungeons and locations for you to explore. There will also be 5 classes to choose from, which include Barbarian, Sorceress, Druid, Rogue, and Necromancer. With a Metacritic score of 91, Diablo 4 has received overwhelmingly positive feedback from both newcomers and longtime fans of the franchise. Average playtime will be about 24 hours if you just do the main story, but for most of you, you'll probably be playing a lot longer than that. While I haven't played Diablo 4 yet because I've been busy playing the game that's at number 1, it's definitely on my short list of must-play games, and I think it should be on yours too. And I'm sure it's to no one's surprise, at number 1 we have Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Since I've been playing a decent amount of the game, I'm just going to talk about why I've been enjoying it so much. The main thing about Tears of the Kingdom that has me hooked is the exploration. Open world games are my favorite type of RPGs because there's nothing I love more than seeing different areas and just discovering things at my own pace and on my terms. And after a short little intro to get you up to speed, the game gives you 4 main checkpoints to move the story along, but after that, you're on your own, and I love that. Whether it's a cave, a monster camp, a new village, or some new armor, Tears of the Kingdom excels at heavily rewarding curiosity. When it comes to my personal gaming habits, I know I'm really enjoying a game when I forget what the main quest is about because I have like 10 or 12 other things I want to do before I get back to it. The last couple of games I can remember having a similar feeling to that is Witcher 3 and Horizon Forbidden West, so this game is in amazing company. The giant open map the game puts you in, plus the new abilities that allow you to move objects, travel through buildings, and fuse weapons just adds to the freedom you have while also making your playthrough unique and personal to you. I'm also really enjoying the side quests so far in Tears of the Kingdom. As most people who have played an extensive amount of RPGs know, side quests in a lot of those games boil down to either fetch quests or simple monster slaying missions. And while Tears of the Kingdom isn't devoid of that, the characters and stories you get from a lot of these quests more than make up for it. I'm currently at about 65 hours played, and I could say it's a strong chance Tears of the Kingdom will end up being in my top 10 all-time favorite games. It's on the list of Persona 5, Borderlands 2, and Witcher 3, where it's really hard for me to stop playing it. And this is coming from somebody who isn't really the biggest Zelda fan. I could keep talking about how much I love finding new gear, how much fun doing shrine puzzles are for me, or how the weapon fusing has made me seek out combat much more than I did in Breath of the Wild or in most games. But I've gushed about this game long enough already, so I'll wrap this up. Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom right now is the frontrunner for Game of the Year for me and most people who've played it. And while not flawless, if you haven't gotten around to this game yet for whatever reason, you're missing out on the closest thing to a masterpiece in gaming that I've seen in a very, very long time. That's all the games I want to talk to you about today. What RPGs have you been enjoying this year? Let me know in the comments. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to see some more games that I think are worth your time, click the link on the screen. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with the channel. Later.